Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah, welcome to Rebuilding the Black Muslim Family. We are on part 5, I believe. Might be part 6. I'll do a double check. But today we are talking about marriage dynamics, and we're going to be discussing so-called modern marriage versus so-called traditional marriage. So we'll get into what do those definitions mean. And we want to talk about the unique benefits of both, the unique struggles of both. And so we are excited to have Aminah Knight with us today, who is my sister, Alhamdulillah. And inshallah, we will have another sister joining us. But if not, mashallah, we'll have a wonderful conversation with just the three of us. Mom, do you want to introduce anything before we continue?
Yes, assalamu alaikum, and thank you all for joining us again for this wonderful series. We've had some great comments from the community, even at some of the masjids that we have gone to, that they are very encouraged by this broadcast. So today we are definitely going to dive a little deep into what is traditional, what is a traditional housewife versus a modern day, if you want the modern day housewife, and how does that work? How do women manage it? What are some of the benefits? What are the pitfalls, and so forth? So I have the pleasure of introducing one of my other daughters that you are meeting today, the beautiful Miss Aminah, Dr. Aminah Knight. I'm going to have her give you some of her background, and she will tell you what she's all about. Welcome, Miss Aminah Knight, Dr. Aminah Knight.
Thank you so much. Yes, as my beloved mother and sister Nuri stated, so I'm Dr. Aminah Knight. I am the owner of Excellence Early Learning Center, which is located in Texas, in Hurst, Texas. I'm a recent graduate from Vanderbilt University's doctorate program. I studied leadership and learning and education there. It was an amazing program. So if anybody's interested, that's definitely one I would recommend. I am a wife and mother of 6. And yeah, I think that's about all I'll share for right now.
Alhamdulillah. So I wanted to, before we get started, inshallah, just give salams to all of you. We see Akila, those of you who have given your salams to us, we just want to return those salams. So, assalamu alaikum. Sophia, Akila, Lavan, assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam. I see Terry, Rashida, Zaki, Hamdana, Rabia here, and Imam Fahim, mashallah. So thank you all for coming and tuning in. Alhamdulillah, our second guest has joined us, Sister Hanifah. Okay, Sister Hanifah, wa alaikum assalam. Alhamdulillah. So if you can give us a brief bio of yourself, inshallah. So we're talking about being a housewife, being a working wife. What are the unique benefits? What are the unique issues? So we just started giving introductions. So what would be your brief introduction, Sister Hanifah?
My name is Hanifah Lum. I'm originally from Indianapolis, Indiana, but I've been living here in Detroit, Michigan for the past almost 9 years now. And I've been a stay-at-home mom and homemaker for the past almost 6 years. I'm a mother of 3. I have a almost 6-year-old daughter, a 3.5-year-old son, and a 1.5-year-old daughter. And I've been married for almost 9 years.
Thank you. Welcome, Sister Hanifah. Looking forward to speaking with you. Everyone, just relax. This is a conversation. So you're amongst family, and we just want to make sure that we share with our audience some of the benefits, some of the pitfalls, and some of the things that, that they can certainly take another look at for themselves, inshallah, to probably mold or schedule themselves around. I just wanted to also mention that Sister Makeda said that she may be joining us, so we'll look for her to be there. We know it's about probably late. Well, it is late in Qatar right now, but you enjoyed having her before, so I think she's going to make an effort to not disappoint you. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's get into some questions. Nur, would you like to begin?
Yes, Hamdana. So first, we sort of divided this, so to speak, into working wife and a stay-at-home wife, or modern versus traditional. Is that, I'll start with you, Aminah, Dr. Aminah, is that a primary definition for you? When you think of yourself as a wife, do you subscribe to this sort of working wife definition as your primary role, contribution, identity?
Yeah. You know, I try my best to be a flexible wife. My husband and I were talking about that earlier today because there's definitely times where everything's running really smooth in my household and I feel like I have more flexibility to pour more into work. But then there's times where there's a lot going on at home. I have 6 kids, they're different ages. I have kids who are just becoming adults. And so that comes with its own bag of tricks that I'm just trying to figure out, my husband and I. And then I've got little kids, and then I've got in betweeners. I've got kids who are just starting puberty and all of that. So sometimes it can really feel like a lot going on, and a lot that one of us, my husband or me, better tap into and pay attention to. And so those times I will just figure it out at work, figure out how I can put um, people in place so that I can be at home and pour into home. Um, yeah, so I don't fully subscribe to one over the other. I think that lots of things that I do might be considered more traditional, like I don't know, I like to make sure I serve my husband his food every day, and that I'm the one preparing the clothes and making sure that everything's put away and clean, and we share certain roles in the house in terms of tidying. But I yeah, so there are some things that I try to do that's traditional, but yeah, I prefer to just be a flexible wife.
Okay, and I think that's a role that a lot of women play these days. But we also have the other part of the coin, which I love to call the home engineers, right? Because even though you're not going out to work to a 9 to 5 job, you're pretty much doing um, some of the same things and sometimes even more, right, as a stay-at-home wife. So, Sister Hanifah, please share with me what your role has been as a traditional wife, if you subscribe to that title.
Sorry.
It's okay. We're family. Let the babies cry.
Um, I would say that currently, the stage of that I'm in life, I would probably say my role or my identity is more of a, traditional homemaker, stay-at-home wife. I basically, I'm mostly, I just, I stay at home with the kids. I take care of most of like, the household chores, most of the organization, most of the child rearing. And so far that's kind of been working out for me and my husband at this, at this stage in our lives and with the ages of our children.
Mhm.
So yeah.
So with the tradition, because I sort of played both roles at one point, being a young married couple, I stayed home with my kids for a number of years, homeschooling them, because my husband and I both thought that that was important. So financially, I wasn't concerned about that, right? So was that a discussion that you and your husband talked about before you got married, or at the point of which you started having babies, you found that it was necessary?
We started we discussed that when we were in the courtship stage of talking to each other. So we talked about that before we got married. That was something that was really important to him, as he had a stay-at-home mom when he was really young, and he just felt like he appreciated those more traditional dynamics, particularly when the kids were younger. And I agreed with him. My mom was also a stay-at-home mom when we were younger, as well, and just based off of how we both grew up and seeing that seemed to be beneficial for us as children. Um, and so, yeah, that's just something that we discussed prior to marriage. And then, even after we began having our children, um, we just kind of, you know, decided that, yeah, this was probably the best decision when they're younger. But he's fully supportive of me, going to back to school or going to work once they're all in school, because we don't homeschool. Our children go to Islamic school. So once we're done having kids and once they're all in school, um, that would probably be better for me to, you know, work while they're, in school, as opposed to, you know, now when they're just a lot younger. It just seems to work better, especially since we don't have family in our state. So we're kind of on our own. So it just kind of seems to work better for us this way.
Mm-hmm. And Aminah, I will ask you the question for a working mom, because I know you are very, being your mom, you're very much a go-getter. And since you were extremely young, you always wanted to be interested in this career that you're in now, which is an educator. Um, how did you ever think about being a stay-at-home mom, or was it always your ambition to be out working and helping to provide?
Yeah, I always wanted to be working. I really enjoy working. It brings me like a sense of satisfaction to just be outside and be interacting with people. And I really like making my own money. Like, there's something about that that's very satisfying for me. I've had a couple points where I stayed at home. After two of our kids, I stayed at home and I enjoyed it for a short time. But then I just started getting the itch, like I couldn't take it. Like, I just felt like either I'm going to go back to work or I'm going to just be sitting in the car for a long time before I come in the house. This is too much. Like, I can't. And so, and mind you, I watch people who do it, like my sister Makeda. I think she's my role model after you, Mom. She's my role model. I watch her and I'm like, she is just killing it at home. But that doesn't bring me inner joy. It brings me inner joy to go out and work, to make money, to be able to use my money how I want to use my money, and then to be home after that and come and interact with my family. And my husband and I did discuss it before we met for, I guess, the second real time at my graduation. And that was so we met at my graduation. That was in May. And he knew I was about to start my first real teaching job, or my first professional, I should say, teaching job in August. And I've just been kind of going ever since. And he's been supporting. But I will say, too, that it is super important that my work is matches the vibe of the house. So I'm in education. It matches the vibe. Like, we've got lots of kids. They need to be educated. I need to be up on what's happening in education. Maybe if I was doing something else that didn't fit so good, he might not like that. And I might not like it as much too. And so I'm in education, but then also I have my own daycare, right? So I'm the owner, which means that it's kind of my seventh child. And so I pour a lot of energy. And there's times where he's like, sometimes I wish you just stayed at home. And I have to like really pay attention to those cues, because that means I'm overdoing it. I'm working too much. I need to figure out my balance so that he's still feeling good about me working, because I want to keep on working, but so that I'm meeting the needs of his needs and the needs of the household. So yeah, we definitely talked about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, there.
Yeah. So when you say you talked about it, did you talk about it as a possibility, or was this? It almost seems like this was a value for you to work. Like, would you say this was so important that like you couldn't not do it, or was it more of an option?
Oh, it was definitely an option because yeah, at the beginning so at first I was working, but then I actually had a car accident and then I wasn't working for a while. And we really enjoyed that time where I was just home and with the kids and I was just living off of his money, and it was like, wow, this is kind of nice. But then I got bored. I just couldn't take it. So yeah, and I feel like honestly, if I'm not doing something that brings me that level of inner joy, I'm not even going to be as good at home anyway. So I might as well figure out whether it's a hobby or whether it's work or something that's just me, that's like satisfying me, so that I can be more, perky and happy at home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I want to loop you into that, Hanifa, because that is kind of the stereotype, but then also a reality, right? For some people that they're home and they're bored and they just don't want to fulfill that role. Have you ever had that point where you're like, maybe I want to rethink this stay-at-home thing?
For sure, for sure. There's definitely days where, being at home is very difficult. I think one of the big cons for me about staying at home is it feels like Groundhog Day. A lot of days where, it's just like the same kind of routine, the same type of schedule, and that can kind of affect you like mentally and emotionally, as well as like, you just feel really bored in life. So I think that's one of the big cons about being a stay-at-home mom for me that I've discovered. And just to note, I'm not one of those people who wants to be a stay-at-home mom forever. I do eventually want to um, transition into working probably part time, because again, I do want to be able to balance the family and home life with also the career. And growing up, I know that that was something that was really difficult for, um, you know, just seeing my mom. That was something that she struggled with. So that's um something that I want to like keep in mind for myself. And I think also personality goes a lot into it as well. I'm not really a go-getter type of person. I'm more of an introvert. And so when I was out working and going to school, it really drained me, just like being, going out there. And also I never really was able, when I did go to college, I did graduate with, my 4-year degree in psychology, in Arabic, but I never really found or discovered a career or a passion that I had. So I think that also goes into it. I don't really have any type of, you know, career or hobby that I'm particularly missing. So now that I'm a stay-at-home mom, it kind of just feels like, okay, this is just kind of my role for now. And so I'm still kind of, discovering and learning, what my hobby is or what I might want to do in the future. But for now, it doesn't really seem like, it wasn't, I think it would be harder for me if I had a career that I really loved, or that I had, something that I had really, maybe if I was an extrovert, or maybe if I just really had something that I was really passionate about, but I just don't. So,
No. So I
Can I just
want to oh,
Mary?
sorry, really quick. Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
1 second. I just want to add Kita here. But go ahead, and then I'll introduce you in one moment, Kita. Go ahead, Amina.
Thank you, Dad. I just wanted to say, just listening to Hanifa, that I always felt like staying at home was also the harder choice, if I'm being honest. And I felt like there's so much. And my sister Keita and I were talking about this too. And I just felt like I'm not quite up for that. It doesn't end. I need work to end. And so I just felt like I want to be able to go to work and then leave work and be done. But with the kids and the whole house thing, every time I had to stay home, like for a period of time, I felt like I was literally standing in the kitchen all day. Like I was either cooking people's food or cleaning up after people's food or washing their dishes. And I was just like, no, no, call somebody else, not me. I need to go to work. I needed an excuse to get out of that work. So I think that working outside my home is possibly part of my excuse. Yes, I love education. That has always been my passion since I could remember. I would almost say it was born from having younger sisters, that I discovered, wow, I just really love teaching. But going to work gives me a little bit of an excuse. Oh, I didn't do all that stuff at home because I wasn't here. I was at work. you know, I can say that. If I'm home all day, it's like all on me. It's like everything is out of order because I didn't do it or didn't get to it yet. That was a little bit tough for me. And so I salute you, Hanifah, because I know that that is very much work. And my sister Makeda, we talk about this all the time. That is the work. And but I choose something else. I choose myself. Let me stop.
Yeah. So I want to get Makeda in. Alhamdulillah, thank you for coming. It is very late where my sister is, subhanAllah, but we're really grateful for her being here. So, and I want to say, four of us are related here. And mashallah, we have our sister Hanifah. Alhamdulillah, my mom, at least me, by the time I was growing up, my mom was a working wife, so to speak. And so she was my example of a woman being a mother and a wife and working. And then I had my older sister, Makeda, who was the example of the housewife. So alhamdulillah, I got to see both. So I appreciated that. So that's my introduction to you, Kira. And you can introduce yourself, inshallah. Give us a short bio.
Assalamu alaikum, Keita. Thank you so much for joining us, sweetheart. So you are, for me, a traditional housewife. I don't know if you own that title, but
yeah.
Oh yeah, you do. So explain to the audience, what do you see as a traditional wife? What does that mean to you?
Well, I guess, Bismillah, assalamu alaikum, everyone. In my case, what I would say is a traditional wife, which I don't even know if that's a good term, but I think, just for lack of a better term, I stay at home, I don't work to provide any financial resources to the family. So my work at home, with the children, with the house and all of those things is not, for money. It's not paid work. And I don't provide any financial resources into the household. And I do have a business. And so I have worked, off and on in my business. And there have been times that I've worked. And of course, I'm happy to have that money and use to contribute to the household. But it's not a requirement or expected in my marriage, alhamdulillah. And so for me, then my role, I guess I would say, as a quote unquote traditional housewife, just traditional mother, like I said, for lack of a better term, is to be dedicated to kind of like the vibe and the tempo and the mood of the house and the family, right? And for that to be like my primary role and my primary job, right? And I think it's a difficult job. Because it's a job that requires a lot of presence. It's a job that requires a lot of like being responsive. It's a job that requires kind of being current with the mood of the home, with the mood of husband, children, with being flexible to make adjustments as you notice the energy shift, and really making sure that I have that time and space to do that. And I don't think that it's necessarily so different, maybe, than moms who work outside of the home. But what I do think is that by not working outside of the home, it is part of my attempt, inshallah, to make sure that I have the energy and the capacity and the capability to do that, because it's a very difficult thing, not only with a spouse, but also with children. If you're talking about multiple children, people of different ages, to sort of be able to be perceptive to um, the emotional, physical, even spiritual needs of the people in the family, and be the person that kind of directs that, is responsive to that, like takes care of that, has space and holds space for people in that way, right? Even if, like they say, to make a house a home, not just a place where people live, but a place where people are paid attention to, where people's emotions, like I said, emotional, spiritual, physical needs are recognized, and so it's a job, it's a position of service for sure. And yeah, so that's what it is to me.
Yeah, I often think that in our society these days, the role of a housewife has been downplayed so much, because in some conversations you would hear people say, "Oh, you're a housewife? Means you have the luxury of doing nothing all day or watching TV or something." And I thought to myself, now, if you only knew, right? Because pretty much a housewife, you're on 24/7, right? And oftentimes you don't even find time for yourself. And, and I just wanted to share because when I was a housewife or stay-at-home mom for about, I think, 5 years, when, you and the twins were born, yeah, it was, I realized that it is definitely a full-time job. And my husband realized that it was a 24/7 job because, by the time you are finished, you are exhausted. A lot of times, if we're going to be honest, you are exhausted in terms of what it is you've been doing all day. And that's why I like to use the term the home engineer, meaning that you could not pay someone outside to do the job that you do as a mother in a home. And in modern day society, when you have those roles switch over, right? Meaning that outside of our community, but I'll get back to that, outside of our community, when men have the opportunity to be at home with their children, even Muslim men who have the opportunity to be at home with their children, they understand when they're in that position what a job it is of juggling children and making sure things are organized and paying attention to their social needs, their emotional needs, their mental needs. All of these things are so important. This is why I wanted to have this conversation, because I think what stay-at-home wives do in particular is of such value to the community, right? And oftentimes we don't raise that up as something honorable to do. It's like someone's telling you, well, you got lucky, like lucky. Yeah, I got lucky raising my kids, right? And I'm sharing this life with my husband and we're trying to make it happen. But working outside of the home is no more important than working inside of the home. And I would even dare say working inside the home is so much more valuable, yeah, I raised my kids for 5 years and then I put you guys in the public school. But when you were at home, of course, I was teaching you and so forth. So many of you went to school well educated, right? Because we made that a priority. Yeah, of course, like, Sister Hanifah said, you have career ambitions as well. So you have moms who that is their career ambition, and that is honorable. And then you have moms who want to have a split type of decision, right? So when you're home with your children when they're young, that is such a nurturing time for you to be with your kids. And of course, that time then goes past, and then you think about what it is you want to do, your personal goals, right? Like you, Keita, you said you have a business. So those are some of your personal goals, right? You don't have to contribute to the family. Amina, you talks about being out of the house and being a career mom. That contributes to your family because again, you're in education. You want to make sure that your kids are getting the right education. And Hanifa, you talked about at some point in time you want to at least go back to the job market because at a certain time your children will be of age. And I think, and that becomes sort of a scary thing for some women. Like, okay, I do have ambitions of my own. So how do I marry these two things and make it work for the family? So my question then would be, well, for Amina, I think you answered this question, but I'll repeat it again just in case you want to add something else to it. So why have you chosen to be a modern day wife?
A modern day wife. I struggle with, and I talk to my sister Makeda about this often because sometimes I feel like, I don't know if this is working. Maybe I'm not pouring enough into home. Maybe I need to back up off of work. Should I get somebody else to run the daycare and just kind of focus on that? So again, I selfishly chose to do what makes me happy. And that has its consequences. So at times, it's great because I feel like I am fulfilling something in me that, like a fire burning in me, like I feel like I'm fulfilling something, and that brings me so much joy. But sometimes it can hurt other people because I can be nonstop and I can be like, can't deal with you right now. I need to finish this. I need to finish this. And I've got this long list of things that I need to finish that I think might be never ending. And so trying to figure out where my family's going to fit into that can sometimes be tough. So then I'll have to prioritize and say, no, Amina, your family has to come first. Because at the end of the day, I want to do all these things. However, it is my husband and my kids who bring me the most joy and satisfaction. And so I need to make sure that I'm acting like that and showing them that. Um, so I chose to work and to, go to school and do those things that bring me joy. But I also realize that it is a selfish choice in a sense because it's what I want to do. But I do my best to make sure that there's benefit in it for my family. Like my family, they have benefited from me opening up a daycare. My youngest son has been in the daycare since he was a few months old. And so that's a time for us to always be together. He's 4 now, and maybe next year he'll go to school. Maybe I'll keep him in the daycare another year. But so now we don't have to pay for daycare. He's with me all the time. That's great. I also have the flexibility to come and go. If the kids are having something at school and I need to leave right now to go and be with them, I can do that. If I want to meet up with my husband for a lunch, my schedule is flexible, I can do that. So I just try to make sure that I'm still making my family feel like they're super important to me or they're the most important people to me, while fulfilling personal desires.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on the positives, right? Because I'm going to assume that you would not work if it was only negative, right? If it was only negative towards your family, I'm sure you would not work. So there are the positive benefits that you mentioned, and alhamdulillah, having a business and having the flexibility. So I want to give that question to the women who don't work, who are housewives or stay-at-home moms. Um, do you ever feel guilty? Because I think what you sort of described, I mean, it was a kind of mom guilt sometimes for working, or wife guilt for working. For the women who don't work, do you ever feel guilty for not financially contributing? I'll go to you first, Kita, because your mic is on. So,
Oh,
and then you,
okay.
Hanifa.
No, I don't. I don't feel guilty for not financially contributing. I think I think it's better that way. I think I think if that's the door that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made available to you, then I think that there's goodness there, you know? And I'll just say that the reality is that, you know, we all like we do our best and we all have kind of ideal ways that we would like our life to go, our marriage to go, our families to go. And that's great, right? At the same time, we also pay attention to like what Allah has put in front of us. You know what I'm saying? Like the door that Allah has put in front of us. And there are times it hasn't, you know, alhamdulillah, I think anyone that has been married over a period of time, you go through financial ups and downs, you know? And so, um, so a woman, like if you decide to stay at home and not contribute to the house financially, then you also have to understand that you might be foregoing a certain level of financial say in the household,
Mm.
right? Because your husband is the only one that is contributing financially. And so even if, you know, you understand finances, even if you have access to finances and things like that, you also understand that because that responsibility, if it is falling squarely on his shoulders, then that means that he is going to have more say um, over the finances, right? And so there have been times I think when I felt like, oh, I want my own money so that I can, you know, do what I want, or, you know, yeah, there have been times like that when I felt, you know, the need to have or the desire to have my own money that, you know, I do whatever I want with, and I don't have to answer to anybody about it. I don't have to, you know, whatever. Um, and that can be a real thing because especially I think in modern Western society, we feel that financial contribution is like the more important contribution. And you can feel or internalize that if you're not contributing financially, you're a dependent, you know, just like a child, that it somehow diminishes like your adulthood, right? Or your presence in the relationship as an equal adult or an equal partner because you're not contributing financially. Some of that can be like our own mind chatter, I'll say, you know. Some of it might come from the husband, you know, if he's the only financial provider. It is possible that he may try to pull financial rank on you and say, you know, well, this is my money or this is what I said. That's possible, you know. Um, and then if that so happens, okay, you deal with it as it comes. But I think it's like what Aminah was saying before, everything has its pros and cons. So staying home and not contributing financially, there are vulnerabilities there. You know, there are vulnerabilities there because, you know, you're more so dependent on, you know, a quote unquote allowance, or, you know, as I said, you don't have as much say in the finances. And so you just have to decide if that is okay with you. Like um, if you know, also if you can be sort of adult enough and mature enough to have a conversation with your husband, you know, where you guys can come to some sort of agreement that you're both comfortable with, you know. Um, yeah, but in terms of feeling guilty, no, I don't feel guilty. But I would say this: any woman who is saying and making the decision to be a stay-at-home mom, to not contribute to the house financially, then it's also your responsibility to be considerate of your husband and his finances, right? And it's also your responsibility to then like If you're going to live on only your husband's salary, then maybe there's certain luxuries that you may think are normal and that you may want that you're going to have to forego because he can't afford that on his salary at this point in time, you know? And so as a woman, then it does call for you to have a certain level of understanding, of understanding, of, I don't know if humility is the right word, just of ability to compromise. Like, yeah, if he can't afford something, then you don't make him feel bad for it. Like, if you want to work and contribute, like, you can do that, or you can live according to his means and not complain about it. Don't make, so if he's providing for you the best that he can, don't make him don't make him feel bad. And yeah, and just be happy with your decision and move forward. So yeah, I'm fine with it, and we've had our moments when we were struggling. And as I said, if I ever had money, like when I was in school, or when I worked with my business, I have no problem. My family are the first people that I will spend my money on. So yeah.
Yes. Sister Hanifah, would you like to chime in on this part? I mean, on every part, but particularly.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what she said. I think she brings up like some really important points about, when you're a stay-at-home mom, you don't, and you're not bringing in any income. um you do you have to rely on your husband's, income. And so there are times where, you know you have to kind of realize and work with the fact that you can't just automatically get what you want in terms of luxuries. And I think having the financial conversations with your husband is also really important. Um, not just, it's obviously important when you're, courting a potential spouse, but also you're gonna have those financial conversations throughout your marriage. It's not just a one-time thing. And I think, I like what you said about having, not necessarily like humility. It may be the wrong word. I'm not sure what the right word is, but just being, for me, just having like a gratefulness, and just like also like having a compassion for my husband. Like, I don't want to ask him to make all these, crazy purchases when I know that he's paying so many bills, and, you have a number of kids. That's a lot of responsibility on someone. And so you don't want to also put all that pressure on them to, you know, buy the latest this or take you here and there, when it just might not be financially feasible. And when you're the person, like, just echoing what you said, when you're the person that has the financial responsibility, they might also be saving money. They might also have financial goals that you don't necessarily want to, impede upon. Um, but in terms of having guilt for not contributing, I would say I have a small amount of guilt, but it's not really that much because, again, I'm not, I would say I try not to be like, someone that is trying to spend a whole lot of my husband's money, especially knowing that I am a stay-at-home mom. I don't want, and he's paying, he's paying a lot of bills. It's just I don't necessarily want to, you know, do that to him, kind of thing. But I do think it is also important, if you're a stay-at-home mom, that your husband gives you an allowance, that is agreed upon when you're at home, because we are still women and we do want to take care of ourselves, whether that's getting your hair done, whether nails. I know when I was pregnant in my third trimester, that's really difficult, and my husband got a cleaning service every other week, so that was really helpful. So that's also another thing, is even though you might be a stay-at-home mom, you don't have to do everything. You can definitely outsource. Um, I love cleaning services. I think everyone should do a cleaning service, especially if you're pregnant, or maybe there's like a sickness that's come over the house, or some type of thing that's happened to the family that's just like really difficult. I know even like, ordering food, you don't have to cook every single night, just different things to where you're making your life easier. You don't have to do everything. So I believe whether you're working or you stay home, you should, outsource, you know.
Mhm.
That's very informative. And I just wanted to tap back into, because some people may say, oh, your husband is giving you allowance, like allowance are given to kids. No, it means that you're definitely not your husband's child, but you are partners in raising a family. And yeah, I know that when I was a stay-at-home mom for some time, my husband and I really lived off of a budget, and I didn't find any problem with living off of a budget. But of course, there are lots of times where your husband may not be in tune in terms of what's going on with the children. They're growing, they need a new pair of sneakers, a shirt, or pants, or whatever. And he's like, really? Do they need it? Really, what's going on with it? Well, guess what? They're growing, right? They're getting bigger. And these are some of the financial things that you have to do. And sometimes, it's kind of difficult for men to grasp on those things because they're not actually raising the children, right, per se. They're not there in the home with them often. So the mom is really more attentive to, hey, Johnny needs a new pair of pants, or Abdul needs a new shirt, or, something like that. And the other thing is that definitely self-care for moms at home, and even for moms that are working, because I know Aminah in particular doesn't have a problem taking care of herself. And I think that's something that probably all of them have learned from me to some degree. Definitely taking some mommy time, some, getting out there and taking care of yourself and keeping yourself together. Not necessarily for your husband, in a sense. Some people may have an issue with that. But if you don't take care of yourself, right, then it's a reflection of you not really caring about yourself. And that also can, affect a relationship. So, stay-at-home moms should really consider very strongly in all that you do at home to take care of yourselves as well, having that time, even having a date night with your husband. I know, Aminah, you and your husband, Aminah, you guys do the same thing. I don't know if any of you do that as well, but having a date night, right? Having a date night with your husband to away from the children, get a babysitter, and all of that is so important for that. Not only the connection, because again, the husband is out providing for the family. And in addition to that, you guys really don't have much time to spend with your husbands when you get back in, whether you're in or whether you're out of the house, right? Because you're constantly with the children. So having some personal time for yourselves, number one, and having some personal time for you, right? Because you will have sisters that will say, I don't have any time for myself. Well, you have to make time for yourself. And that's a conversation that you should be having with your partner, your husband as well. And men appreciate it. Like, my husband knows that when I'm going to the salon, I got to get my massage at least once a week. And I'm going to take care of all the girl things that I need to take care of because I want to feel good about myself. And I want to also feel healthy and, doing all the things that I know personally as a woman that matters to me. So self-care is so important. And I would encourage the husbands and the wives who are listening, or even young women who may be listening, and men, that these things are important that you should discuss and should not have a problem with. I love the part when you said you have to be considerate with your husband's finances. That is so important if you are a stay-at-home mom. Because yes, if you were never brought up in a family where a budget is a friendly person to you, meaning that you never grew up with a budget and things like that, or you never even considered a budget, you may think like, listen, I need some money, I need $100, and he's going to say, like, what do you need $100 for? It's not that he doesn't want to give you the $100. It's like, we need to discuss certain things, or, your payment of whatever it is you guys decide, and you will get a personal payment and have your own bank account. I'm big on that, right? Women should, whether you're working or not, you should have your own bank account. Manage your personal finances, because at some point in time, if something happens to your husband, you have to go and take care of business. Everything is in your husband's name, right? And now you have to start from scratch if he's not around, right? To make sure that you get certain things done. So I would say, one, personal care is very important. In addition to do all of the work that you do for everyone else, right? Making sure you have your health checks, whatever it is you have to get in order. Making sure that you guys have this discussion about what your needs are as well. Because I find sometimes women tend to ignore their needs until they're totally exhausted, and then you're like, what's going on with me? Whatever it is, you might need a break. I love the fact that you said also, Hanifah, yeah, my two other daughters can relate to this, getting a housemaid, a housekeeper. There's no guilt in that, right? There's no guilt in that. And Aminah, I'd love for you to speak to this, because you're a working mom, right? And I know every time I turn around, you say, Mom, I got to call the housekeeper.
Call the cleaner.
This is something that I'm used to, because I did everything myself. So when my daughters, got older, and they're like, Mom, the maid is coming, and I have a maid coming in, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? So in my traditional way, I'm thinking like, well, why can't you do that yourself? Mm-hmm. But then I had to stop and think, but this makes a whole lot of sense. Like, I don't need to do everything, right? So in my era of being a mom, yes, and this is for full transparency to women and men as well, but more so women, I practically did everything until I was doggone exhausted. So working smarter, someone just said it, working smarter was the thing to do. It's like, I don't have to do everything, right? And I don't have to do everything that day, right? Some things can be left over for the following day. So please speak to the maid and idea, Mina. Well, not idea, because
it's interesting, because when we were younger, two of my sisters, so there's 4 older sisters and 2 younger sisters. Everybody's grown now, but that's still how we're separated.
Generation.
My two of my sisters used to always say, when they got older, for sure, they were going to have a maid, and the maid was going to do this and do that. And I remember me and Makeda would be like, why would you have a maid? You're supposed to do everything and take care of the house and blah, blah, blah. And me and Makeda have steadily had a maid since we've become, wives and mothers. We've steadily had a maid, whether it was a housemaid who lived with us, whose job it was to help take care of the kids and clean the house and kind of be our right hand wing person to help with the things. But honestly, I feel like I need a self-care team. In order for me to be okay, I need some women. Only women, has to be women in my corner who are part of my self-care team. These women, I love them deeply. My housemaid is number one. There has to be somebody who's coming to clean this house, because so I like to do some maintenance things with cleaning my house. I like to organize my drawer and my husband's drawer and things like that. That's about where it ends. The rest of it does not bring me joy. I do not need to do it. The other people I need to have in my self-care team is a good massage person, because again, if I'm feeling more relaxed and all of that, then I'm happy. Like, I'll come home from the spa, I'm like, what does everybody need? What do you want from me? I can do it. Like, I can do it now. I can function now. The house is clean. I'm feeling good. Now I can go and just be my best self. So yeah, but I will say, sorry, one last thing on that. I will say that sometimes you can go outsource crazy, because then I had decided, all right, you know what? Another person I need on my team is a cook. I'm over it. I'm done. I'm out of ideas. So I got a cook. And so he was cooking and delivering the food 3 days a week. So he would cook for 2 days in a row. And my family was digging it, but then at first, but then I noticed my husband starting to have little complaints like, tacos, really? Did he bring us tacos? Like, and then, so then I was like, you just have to stay tuned in. Like, he's eating and I'm just watching his face. Like, is he digging it? Should I pull this one back? Is this too much? Should I do too much? And then I realized, yeah, I definitely did too much. Cut the chef. That's got to be my job. But other things like doing the girls' hair. I don't like doing their hair. Why? Because I feel emotionally drained. My little girls, they're so sweet, but they say the worst things to me when I'm doing their hair. You don't love me. You don't really care about me. How could you hurt me like this? When I'm literally just trying to do their hair. So by the time I'm finished, I am emotionally exhausted. My back hurts. No. So I'm not doing that anymore. So I think you just find your balance of your team who can really work with you to help you be your best self, and also make sure you're part of somebody else's team, another woman's team, who's, whether it's because you're being their good friend or whatever it is, because I just feel like as women to function, we need a good solid team. So
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that one of the things that brought all of this like kind of home for me, I was listening to a talk, this is many years ago, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf had a talk about, I don't remember what was the original topic, men and women, something about men and women. And I remember him saying in the talk, he said, women have to be careful, wives, because, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher it, but he said, wives have to be careful because sometimes they relegate themselves to like the role of a maid. They cook all day, they clean all day, they do all these things to make themselves tired. And then they don't have any time for their husband. And he's like, but your job is to be there as a companion to your husband. Your job is actually not to cook, not to clean. You can't say, I'm too tired to be pleasant with my husband. I'm too tired to spend time with my husband. I'm too tired to spend time with my children because don't y'all see I've been cleaning this house all day and I've been cooking? Like, no, if that's the case, then you need to pull back. Like Aminah said, you need a team. And definitely I remember my mother encouraging me, like when, I first started getting a maid and I was like, oh, I don't really want to. And my husband was fine with it. My mother was like, if your husband is okay with it, just get a maid to help you. And you know what? And it makes a huge difference because, if I have an attitude at night and I don't want to go to bed because I'm like, I'm going to clean the kitchen and I don't want dishes in the sink in the morning, right? But then I'm ignoring my husband, I'm ignoring my children, or I'm yelling at my kids all day, it's really not worth it, right? And so I think sometimes like reprioritizing and saying, okay, well, what's my priority as a mom? What's my priority as a wife, right? Like all these other things, they're gonna have to take like second step. And so, yeah, even things like beautifying ourselves, taking the time to do your hair, to get dressed nicely, all of those types of things, whether it is getting a massage, whether it is going for a walk, any of these things that, put you in more of a relaxed frame of mind so that you can be ready to be that receptive, like wife and mother and woman of your household. Like we have to realize that's the priority. It's our job to make sure that we create space for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sorry, Nara. Yeah, it's interesting listening to you young ladies again, because as I'm listening, I forgot, and I know you guys have heard this story from me before, that I grew up in a household where I had two maids. As a young lady growing up in Guyana, right? Because my mom was a working mom. She was in London. My father was in London, and they wanted to make sure that, everything was taken care of, including my grandparents that helped raise us. So it's funny how you forget some of these things, but it definitely made life easy for us. And yes, your husband, of course, will be on board with this. Particularly, men aren't creatures of telling their wives all the time, or even recognizing that hey, you look beautiful, you're taking care of yourself or whatever. Just one day out of the blue, it was like, oh, aren't you going for your walk today or something like that? Or it's like, what's happening to the massage or something? Because it's funny because when I think about it, and my husband sometimes says, oh, babe, aren't you scheduled to go to your massage today? I'm like, yeah, but I'm doing something else. Because sometimes you think that they don't pay attention to these things, right? But they actually do pay attention to you if you have, again, this discussion with them of things that's going on with you. And then you want to say something, then I want to talk about the husband's role as well in this in more detail.
Okay, yeah, I just really loved Kita's definition of a wife as primarily a companion. I think that's really valuable because sometimes when we think about a housewife or even a working wife, whatever type of wife, we can put other things in front of that. And I think it's just really valuable to sort of come back to that essence of what it means to be a wife. And I do want to say to the audience, again, thank you for being here. Inshallah ta'ala, we would love for you to send your questions now so we can begin answering within the next few minutes.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in households where the husband and the wife are sitting and having conversations for everything that involves the entire family, you will definitely have husbands participating in addition to helping, actually not helping, but being the provider, right? You have husbands that will help clean up, that will help, prepare dinner, will help do all these things. So absolutely, you will, we want to give credit to the brothers that actually do that. And for the sisters who don't have brothers that's doing that, sometimes you need to sit down and have a conversation with them in detail and not assume that they know that there's a need for certain things in the household that maybe they're not paying attention to. Because I know sometimes as women, we assume that men should know these things because they're there, like they're there every day and they're observing. They're not necessarily observing, I mean, the typical creature of a man, disposition of a man, they come home, the house is clean and the kids are in order and the food is ready and everybody's okay, they're fine, they're okay. But having more in-depth conversations with them about how things are going with us as women, whether you're a traditional wife or a modern day wife, or a working wife, I should say, these are things that should be important for you to discuss and not assume that they know these things. And I think also it goes back to the fact that how we deliver our concerns is like so important. And back to what, some of you ladies said, don't wait until you're exhausted to have these conversations. You're tired, you're washing the dishes, the kids are running crazy, you're just having a bad day. Sometimes it has to do with how do we deliver a conversation and how we're connecting with our husbands. And definitely, we should also realize that men are pretty much creatures of habit, right? So you bring them into the fold of doing certain things, and though they may not let you know outwardly, inwardly, they are looking at what you're doing and appreciating it. And you have to then make sure that you are, again, communicating those wants and needs and desires that you have, because not because you're a stay-at-home mom, it means you have less value than a woman who goes out there and decide to work. I mean, I think both women, both sides of the coin, we should understand that we are valuable. So it goes back to the point of saying, if you don't contribute, right, in terms of having a job outside, the job that you do inside is so much more valuable than the job that you do outside. And both women who are working and doing both, right? Because oftentimes we're doing both. Working outside and working in the home is like just a super crazy job, right? Because when you're finished at 9 to 5 and you come home, the job continues until you go to bed. And that is some real experience that some of us have had as working moms. You do what you do 9 to 5 and you come home and you still got to clean, cook, and make sure everybody else is okay. And then, hopefully you get some me time for yourself, So, no. Any questions yet from the audience?
Okay, Hamdana. Yes, we have some questions, and please continue to send your questions in. So I'll answer this one quickly. There's a question of if we're going to have a married man on the panel. We are not. Yes, some of our panels have only been women, but I think most of them have been men and women. So this question I will give to you, Hanifa. Actually, I guess you all can answer it, but I'll start with you, Hanifa. If a couple has decided on the roles they play within the marriage and the majority of domestic duties are on the wife, should the man or woman pay for the cleaning services? What do you think, Hanifa?
I would say it depends on the couple. That's for them to have that conversation and for them to decide what, who should pay for that. I think it really depends on if she's working and bringing in any type of financial contribution, and also if it's um, in any way equal to his. Also, it says that she does if she does the majority of the domestic duties. Um, I would say if she doesn't bring in any money, then I think that he should pay for that. It shouldn't come out of like her allowance that he gives her. Um, but that's just me. Um, People can decide. I guess if she's the one that's working, then I guess she could pay for it, if that's what she wants to do. But I
Okay.
don't know, that's up to them.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just based on your experience, and you can say skip if you don't want to answer, but when you wanted to outsource certain things, was that something that you took out of your allowance, or was that something separate that you asked your husband if you could do, if he would?
So when I was pregnant and I was getting the cleaning services, that's something that my husband paid for. And then for with my daughters when they get their hair done, because I don't do their hair either. I'm not doing that. I don't even do my own hair. That's something that he gives me money for as well.
Okay, Amina.
Yeah.
And how about I'll go to you next, Amina, Dr. Knight. When you, as a working wife, and just you personally, when you're outsourcing certain things, is that something that you go to your husband to, or is that something that you take care of? Or you can just say generally what you think should happen.
Yeah, that is something that I very proudly take care of because that is what I want. Like I need to have that, and so I feel like when we first got married, I was so overzealous. Like, yeah, I'm gonna cook for you every day, and I'm gonna make sure the house is squeaky clean. And I would literally go to bed so tired, trying to make sure that there was no dust anywhere in the house and everything was clean all the time. And I remember my sister-in-law telling me one day she was at the house, she was like, Amina, you're gonna burn yourself out. You should stop now. Like you should slow down, sister. But I was like, no, because I want all these things just like this for him. It has to be just like this. And so I feel like because I kind of signed up for that in a sense at the beginning. I still want the house to be super clean and I still want there to always be a yummy dinner. So if I can't do those things myself, I'm so happy to pay for it.
Okay, okay, mashallah, that makes sense.
My
So
big woman flex, I can pay for that.
I'm dead. I'm dead. So I want to ask you one follow up before I go to you, Kita. So are you in part paying for it because you feel like if you weren't working, you would be doing it? So is it sort of like a making up for that in a sense?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And honestly, I would say yes. Yes, I do feel like but at the same time though, if I was, I think if I was an inexperienced stay-at-home mom, I would do it. I'd feel that way. So right now I do feel that way as a working mom, but because I have my sister as the example of someone who she does so much, she homeschools the kids and she just does all these other things. So the other things where she could really financially help another woman, plus it doesn't that's not she's not working in her zone of excellence if she's cleaning the house. her zone of excellence is educating the children and being an amazing companion to her husband and all those things. So it doesn't make sense for her to waste time and burn out, clean. And so even my husband said something similar to me before with that. He was like, I don't need you to do the trivial things. Like we can get somebody else to do that. You got like mind work. You do mind work. And so I think, but right now I would say, yeah, I pay for it because, well, I make money. And so I want to make sure that I'm using my money's for my family. Like it makes me so happy to work and be able to do all the extra things that, it's not necessity things, but it's extra things that make my family happy.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. And same question for you, Makeda. Was that something you dipped into your own personal finances to pay for, to outsource those sort of housework things, or was that a discussion that you had with your husband and then he covered it?
Yeah, for us, it was a discussion and he covered it. And because, kind of like Aminah said, before I was overzealous, I think. I was cooking all meals every day and cleaning every day and homeschooling and doing all these things. And I can't go to bed with the dirty kitchen, and I can't go to bed with, the living room not straightened out, and so then what? I'm staying up until midnight, 1 a.m, cleaning, and then just exhausted and for what, And my husband was the one that, alhamdulillah, really had to say to me, like, listen, I prefer, and I guess it took both of us some time to like be able to communicate it clearly with each other so that the other person understood, But what he had been saying to me really from before was like, I would rather spend time with you at night. Like, I don't care about the dirty dishes, But me, I'm like, well, I do care about the dirty dishes and I can't relax if there's dirty dishes in the kitchen, And so that kind of understanding between the two of us about what's important. And with homeschooling, like on top of that, once my kids got older, my husband was like, listen, you're not going to be able to like homeschool effectively if you also are trying to like clean the house all day and cook 3 meals a day. And like, there's babies in the mix, like, you can't do that, like you're just not going to do it. And I think initially, even still, I took it as sort of like, yes, I can, that kind of feeling like I can do everything. So it's sort of delusion, right? But what it is that sure, you could do a million things, but like Aminah said, but are you working in your zone of excellence though? Or are you so tired and annoyed when dealing with your children, yelling at 2-year-olds for making crumbs because you want to do something else and they just mess up your clean kitchen. But it's kind of like you could get help. And like Aminah said, that help could be helping another woman with her family, so there's no shame in that. If you're able to put aside finances, this other woman comes in, she's like, Aminah says, she's like part of your team and you're also part of her team, right? Because you're helping her provide for her family, and she's helping you have peace of mind. So you're not so stressed out. You're not so tired and exhausted and resentful and all of those things that happen when you really are just like overextending yourself. So alhamdulillah, for us, it was a discussion and my husband was happy to facilitate that.
Nuri, before you move on to the next question, I just want to add a little piece. And I think that was the thing for me that sort of sealed it when, my daughters talked about having a maid, and I totally forgot I grew up in maids. But the thing is that for me, I looked at it at the point of you're also providing work for another woman, right? To take care of her family. And I remember when you guys were overseas and I had this discussion with you, and I thought to myself, wow, this is really great because here you are providing work for another woman who also needs to take care of her family, right? And I noticed for you in particular, Aminah, with your business, you have hired a lot of sisters who also wanted to work, but they weren't necessarily available or qualified to do certain things, but you have provided work for them in the community. And for me, that is like such a blessing because, again, these are Muslim sisters from all over, right? You have um, workers from, I don't know, maybe Senegal. Name some of the places that you have sisters who work in your daycare.
Well, my main two places, no, main three places are Sudan number one.
Mhm.
Number two is the Pacific Islands.
Mhm.
And number three is Mexico. And I would say specifically with the women from Sudan, these are women who were stay at home wives and moms who wanted to work, but their husbands were like, no, I need you to stay at home. I don't really like certain kind of work environments for you. But
Mhm.
here at daycare, it's almost like being at home in a sense. It's
Mhm.
just women. They get to socialize with all their friends at work, and they bring their traditional foods from home every day. So lunchtime is always a party. And for me, it's always such a beautiful thing to just sit back and watch because husbands will call me and say, "Can my wife work with you?" And my husband's like, "Why is the husband calling you?" I'm like, "Oh, because her English isn't so good." However, you don't need to have immaculate English to change a diaper and to cook and to rock a baby to sleep. And so there's a place for everybody.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. Nuri.
Okay, so Imam Fahim, I'll give this question to you, Kira. How important is it to pass the traditional housewife homemaker to the next generation? Will it be something to treasure for them? So, do you think this is something that is good to pass on to your daughters or even to your sons, that this is what they should look for?
Yeah, Bismillah, I think it is something that's really important. And I think that it's important primarily for the reason of I think it's valuable that someone in the family, and it's going to be primarily the woman, primarily the wife and mother, has the emotional, like physical space to be in tune with the family, to be in tune with the children, to be in tune with the vibe of the household. And I think this is something that has been lost culturally, not even so much so because of women working outside the home. That's not necessarily the thing, because it's not, a woman can work outside the home and still be in touch with her family if that's a priority for her. Of course, there's, like my mother said, work, it's sort of an added burden in a sense because she just has two difficult jobs. But a woman who says this is going to be her primary role, what I would want my daughters to understand and my sons to understand is that there is something really important and valuable in prioritizing and maintaining connection with the people in the family and the people in the household. I think that as a community, I feel, and on Milano's best, I could be wrong. I feel that as a community, we are sometimes not forthcoming about how detached we are from our spouses, how detached we are from our children, how unaware we are of dynamics and energy and emotional needs and mental needs and all of those things of people in the household. And it's like, but if there's no center to the home, if there's no person who has taken on that responsibility, right, in the home, I feel like that's one of the ways that it's kind of like something happens with our children and it's like, oh, didn't see that coming. Something happens in the house and it's like, oh, where'd that come from? Well, no one was paying attention. No one took it on themselves to say, that's my job, right? Like, to be that person who is like, that's my job, who is tapped in to the family. And I just want to say that it's something that the sister said earlier, Hanifa, when I first joined in. just reminds me, I feel like as stay-at-home moms, what we forget is that it's not only just about staying in the home, because tapping into your family, tapping into your children is also like the beginning and part of tapping into the larger community, right? Because you see community needs, you see the needs of like friends and companions for your children, right? You see like personalities of your kids and what type of people they need to hang out with, what type of people you need to move them away from, right? You see, you feel the vibe of like your husband's friends, your own friends, other people in the community. You make connections with other women, right? You have space to do that, right? Like these things take time, they take time, they take a bit of an unburdened mind, they take a bit of an unburdened heart, they take someone to be there to notice, like one of the greatest things is the prayer of a mother for her children. But if you're not paying attention to your children, do you even know what to pray for them? Like you're not even there, you don't even notice, right? That this kid is just, you know, having maybe spiritual issues, they're having mental issues, they're having emotional issues, that perhaps if we just have the space to be there, I think our modern society, like we just don't value human connection, so it's like Aminah was saying, like there's lots of things you can outsource, but then there is taking it too far, right? And so as a mom, you get to see like, okay, there's some things that I need to be the one doing this for my family. I need to be the one there, because my like connection, like my womb connection with my children, my intimate connection with my husband, um, privies me to certain things in the household that are for me, that Allah has like placed me in the perfect position to be the one like to facilitate those things. So yeah, so for me, I think it's very, very important. I think it's definitely something to treasure. I think it's something that we is very difficult because it kind of goes against a lot of the values of the modern world. They kind of say like that it's nothing, like what's the big deal? Like just send them off. Anyone can do this, but we just have to hold firm that like being able to maintain those bonds, those connections with our children, with our households, feel the energy, who's coming in your home, you know, do you are you getting a vibe from that? Like it sounds, whatever, but when you're the one that's like keeping the tempo, right? Like then there's certain people, there's certain things that I'm just not feeling. This person comes around, my kid starts acting a little like whatever the case may be. Somebody needs to be that person, and I think that women are blessed, particularly like, alhamdulillah, to hold that position. So yeah.
Which is an extremely valuable one.
Alhamdulillah. So the next question, I'll give this to you, Hanifa. You mentioned boredom before, so this might be connected here. Imam Amin asks, as a stay-at-home wife, mother, how much has online shopping become a part of your daily routine?
You remember me.
I'm probably the wrong person to ask this question because I love shopping. Now, I'd probably say I shop for myself once a month though. I don't go crazy with it. But I there's a difference between online browsing
Right.
and actually purchasing items.
Okay.
Aminah, do you want to take this one on, Aminah?
Huh?
You want to take this question on?
You know what? It's funny. I mean, I think online shopping is amazing. I mean, I think that, I don't know, this is silly. Well, no, I'm sorry, it's not silly. How much has it become part of your daily routine? I think that a lot of people just like to shop online and just kind of browse around. And I know I have lots of carts that have lots of things in it, but I don't pull the trigger and actually purchase it. It's just nice to be able to just put things in the cart. That's the nice thing about it. So yeah, it's definitely part of my daily routine.
But I just want to tap into that a little bit. That to me, that is just like again outsourcing, right? Because if you're going to shop online, instead of getting dressed, jump in your car to go shopping, and you can do that shopping online, I say go for it. Now, it's a matter of how you're balancing the budget, right? So these are part of the things that maybe you should plan into it. But definitely, you see, sometimes people get the impression that, oh, wives are home online shopping, and no, 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 no. It's the same type of psychology as if you were to go into the store and spend hours trying to decide what you want to buy for this kid or you want to buy for the family. But that's the convenience that now we're using. And I would say use it. But again, of course, you got to watch your budget. And is it necessary to get some of these things? But it's a convenience to a lot of housewives. I mean, a lot of women, but particularly housewives who know that they can get online and, order something instead of getting out there and driving in the traffic and dealing with, all the hustle bustle and whatever. I say do it, but watch the budget.
And I'll sort of give that to you, Kira, but tie in. It's funny because I think that is kind of not that I'm saying Imam Amin was saying this, but I think that can be a sort of stereotype of the. Okay, I think I'm getting feedback somewhere. A stereotype of the housewife that, bored shopping all day. So do you think any of that is real, that boredom can lead you to just frivolous? I mean, maybe you're also the wrong person to ask because you have 8 children, mashallah, but does that ever happen that, boredom leads to, frivolous shopping or frivolous activity in general?
I mean, yeah, I was saying to someone, I don't remember who, I don't think it was my husband, but it might have been my husband, that saying when we were younger, I said my parents used to say that, what is it? An idle mind is the devil's playground. So, of course, if you're bored, you do all kind of ridiculous things, But with online shopping, yeah, I don't, I do order groceries sometimes, but like I literally live like around the corner from the grocery store. And for me, grocery shopping is a nice downtime anyway. It's a nice downtime. I don't bring the kids shopping with me. I have some older kids now, so I just leave everybody at home, go shopping. That's some alone time. I don't talk to anybody. That's my little kind of that can be part of my self-care routine as well, just to like get away, have a little bit of alone time. So, and you know what? And sometimes it's just part of household management, like my mother said, because when you do stay at home, you can get bored. But I'll say this: you get bored when you diminish the task at hand, right? When you forget how important your job is, and you forget all the things there is to do. That's when you get bored. That's when you get bored. But when you remember that, like, no, Allah has actually given you a hefty load here and a blessed opportunity, then you don't get bored. There's plenty of things to do, So,
Yeah, and I would also add that, for housewives, more so, you are working on quote unquote a schedule. I mean, the assumption is that housewives are not as organized, but I have found that yes, you prioritize things, you manage things, you control, you deal with a budget, and all the other things that was mentioned before. So sometimes I think actually boredom, if you want to use that word, I would more look at it as relaxed time. Because seriously, if you decide to do nothing for an hour and just sit down and meditate or just even take a nap, that's your time to revitalize and get back into things. So don't feel guilty about it. Oftentimes we push ourselves to the point of exhaustion, to the point of depression, to the point of like nobody understands all of the stuff that we have to do because, yeah, nobody else does it. But in some cases, if your husband is paying attention and really value the work that you do, oftentimes your husband, as I said, they will work with you and they will chip in. And for the younger people that are on here, and if my husband was here, when we got married for, at a young age of 21, there was no such thing as him changing diapers. He's like, "What? No, men don't do that." so, so it was actually his brother that told him, "Are you kidding me? Change your baby's diapers." He's like, so he had to go through the whole process of learning how to change diapers when I was at work and he was off. And to the point where he boasts about it. "Babe, I changed these. This is how you change a diaper." I'm like, "Okay, you got it, babe. I'm not gonna compete in that." To the point where he didn't cook. So he would ask me how to make certain dishes, and now he cooks his food. He cooks food for the entire family, and he enjoys doing it. So people go through stages in their life where they understand that there's a value to each other and they participate. So he would cook, and the girls can tell you, I mean, we brought up 6 daughters, right? And he still cooks the same amount of food that he did when they were home as little kids. But I appreciate that. Initially, I was like, "Why are you cooking all this food? The girls are not here anymore." He said, "No problem." He's like, "Okay, well, let me have food for another 2, 3 days." I'm like, "Okay, good, that works for me." I just add some other amenities to it as the day goes by. So I'm just saying that, as we get older, and again, we appreciate each other and the things that each other do for ourselves, as well. It's important to always have that communication on what it is you want to see and how you want to see your household looking, right? Because it's going to go through changes. So being a housewife is such an important role in our society. And as the Imam said, I hope it doesn't fade away. I think it's something that young women need to be encouraged to look at, in addition to being career women. And again, using all of some of the things that you guys advise here. Yeah, get yourself a maid. And you don't have to have a lot of money to do some of these things, right? You don't have to make 6-figure jobs in order to hire someone to come in and clean for you, and to keep the house in order. Even if it's once a month, at least that once a month gives you an opportunity to take care of yourself and, spend some time with each other. Okay, Nuri, you have another question?
Alhamdulillah, I see no more questions, lots of comments. I see you all talking to each other, mashallah. This is a very important discussion. And as we've mentioned, both roles can be important. It really just depends on your personal family dynamic, what is needed in your own family. And alhamdulillah, we have both examples from the Prophet, his wife Khadija worked, radiallahu anha. We know that his daughter Fatima did not work in terms of for financial contribution, as well as most of his other wives did not work. So alhamdulillah, they're both halal. And so you look at your own life situation to decide what works for you and what is most valuable. And from all the ladies on the panel, then we've heard that putting family first is crucial. So alhamdulillah, we'll wait a few minutes for any questions. Nail, I'm not sure which question you're talking about, so please let me know, or you can rewrite it. Maybe I did miss it. So, Mom, if you wanted to go into anything else as we kind of wrap up, and we're just waiting for any last couple of questions, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, all of these ladies, I think I heard 10 years from you, Hanifah. I know my sisters have been married for very long. So, alhamdulillah, they are wonderful people to ask in terms of their experience. And we await your questions. And while we do, Mom, any last final topics we want to talk about? Final questions?
Well, I think we covered, in a general sense, and touched on some of the things that we really wanted to bring out, and to, again, have women see themselves as being valuable, both in the household and outside of it. And of course, having the option to work and bringing your own money. And that's something a lot of women are interested in doing. And there are other women who are just fine staying home and being a housewife, being a mother who homeschooled and all of that. And just, again, having your eyes and ears to the ground is so important, because we know in many cases when we are outsourcing our kids to the public schools, and particularly if they're not in Muslim schools, there's a lot of stuff that's going on out there that really mothers who are home need to pay attention to in these public schools, right? There are things that are coming at them left and right, and they need to know where they're standing, and they need to be standing on solid ground. and the mother plays such an important role in that household. So I want to give you ladies your flowers and working on both ends of the spectrum, being a housewife, being a mother, a career mother, and it's not easy because you are speaking to someone who did both. And I enjoyed both of them, but definitely being a housewife was the most exhausting one. And having a career where, my kids are grown and I'm able to continue in that career has been a most rewarding one. But I certainly have seen the benefits of being a housewife, a stay at home mom for a period of time. And I would say that it is something that is not as valued in our community, but we need to value it more. So for brothers who may be on this broadcast, I definitely want to encourage you to please be more supportive of your wives that are home, holding down the fort, and definitely appreciate her more if you are not. Let's look at that and let's try to build that up some more. And I encourage sisters to consider it, to consider being a housewife, even if it's part of your time until the kids are growing up. And in the meantime, you have to find some and fulfill some of your own personal goals, because sometimes that may also be part of the boredom, is that because we are such energized human beings and we have a lot going on, we're just not, you know, narrowly thinking about raising our families, even though that's a priority. But as human beings, we have other interests. And I think folks should really also, you know, try to fulfill those things as well, as long as you're communicating with each other. Questioner, has the brother clarified what he wanted to say?
Okay, so we do have a question here from Brother Nail, which inshallah, Brother Nail, sorry, subhanAllah. Inshallah, Brother Nail is going to be on the last part of this series. And I saw someone ask, when will the next class be? The next part of the series will be next Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So your question, Nail, I don't know if we can answer it because there is no man on the panel, but I will put it up anyway. And if anyone wants to, you can. What does self-care or personal chill time look like for the husband? Oftentimes, self-care or time for rejuvenation is only spoken of in relation to wives and not the husband. What should a wife do? Oh, I see. Okay. What should a wife do to ensure her husband has time to collect himself and rejuvenate to be of service? Okay, so I guess we can answer that. He's asking the women, what does the wife do to ensure her husband has time to collect himself and rejuvenate? I'll go to you first, Amina. You're on mute. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can say a little bit. It's funny because just the other day, my husband was going to the bank, and sometimes I'm like a little kid, like, oh, I want to come. But he was like, you sure? Because I'm about to be blasting my music. Okay, mind you, he has this truck that has these ridiculous speakers that you can hear from down the block, and it has a train horn on it. Okay. And so sometimes when we're driving, he has an extra bass system in there, and it literally feels like vibrations and steam is coming out of his ears. And so I was like, oh, that's what you want to do? No, it's okay. I'll stay home. And so I feel like that's some of his self. That's like his time. He likes to go and drive around and blast his music. He likes it. It's enjoyable for him. And so then it's enjoyable for me that that's enjoyable for him. I think that everybody, whether it's the husband or the wife, has to make up for their own self. What is it? Like, he thinks it's silly that I get massages. He thinks massages are kind of intimate. Well, not silly, I shouldn't say, but he doesn't get it in the way that I get it. Like, he's not going to go get a massage. He just, that's not his thing. But that's my thing. And I wouldn't like it if he said to me, I think that's silly. It's kind of a waste of money. Just like for me, that's his thing, driving around, blasting his music. He enjoys it. And so I just think that respecting each other's individuality, and respecting each other's space is what a wife or husband can do to ensure that their spouse is rejuvenated.
Keita?
Yeah, I ditto everything that Amina said. Like, just be considerate of the other person. Remember that your spouse is their own separate individual from you, and they're gonna need time alone, and that's what both people need to respect, especially because sometimes, yeah, sometimes people can't necessarily or don't necessarily express, hey, I need time alone to for self-care, or I need time alone to collect my thoughts. Like, but just be like, listen, I'm gonna go for a run. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna go, meet my friends for coffee. Let them go. Let them go. Don't nag. Like I would say, women don't nag your husband. Husband don't nag your wives. Like if your wife says to you, I just want to go meet my friend for coffee, like just let her go, and same thing. If your husband says to you, like, I'm gonna go out for a run, don't be like, oh, but you just got home. Okay, well, and he feels like he needs to go for a run, so just let the man go for a run. So yeah, that's my thing. Just understand that people are separate people from you, and if somebody reaches out, someone expresses to you that they need some time, let them have it. If you feel like it's getting to be too much, or like you're being ignored, or you're not spending enough time together, fine, talk about it at another time. But in the moment, like that person, unless you really, really, really need them, so you need to like know your own self too. Like let people have their space.
Sister Hanifah.
Yeah, I like what everyone else said. Self-care is important for anybody, regardless if they're a husband or a wife. Um, you know, I think the reason why self-care comes up so much for women, and particularly moms, is because a lot of our roles in regards to being a wife, in regards to being a mother, sister, is in terms of service to others. So a lot of times we're being depleted. Mom burnout is real, wife burnout is real. So that's why self-care comes up, because a lot of women don't have balance in their lives. So and we're also having to push against a lot of um you know I guess, I don't know if the word is stereotypes, or this toxic belief that some people have, or even some cultures have, to where they believe that women should just give, 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 and women end up overextending themselves, and they end up you know um you know getting lost in their roles, in terms of, and in relation to you know how they're serving other people. But I definitely think um yeah, like, wives and husbands, like, they need to have those conversations with each other, so that they can make sure that not only they're not just meeting their family's needs and each other's needs, but their own needs. Because outside of being a wife and a husband, or a mother or a father, we're also ourselves. So we need to make sure that we're meeting ourselves needs as an individual, not just those so-called roles that we occupy.
Right. And I just want to add a little bit to that question too. Um, raising children as a young mom was, both my husband and I took those roles very seriously. And yeah, my husband would go to the masjid. And for me, I knew that was also his personal time, right? So he would spend hours at the masjid, and he got home and he was fine. And then he's the kind of guy, he likes a little bit of alone time, so he'll be reading Quran or reading whatever books. He's just a reader. So I know when this is just about people paying attention to each other. So I know when he needs his personal space. So I would not infringe on that or say, hey, you know you're spending so much time at the masjid, you're not spending this time, that amount of time. Of course, he was considerate. But yeah, of course, the men need their alone time. And as the sister said, one should communicate that. And women, just as men, should not be insecure if a sister is saying, listen, I'd like to go and have some lunch with, the sisters this weekend, or, go to the gym for a workout, or have some massage or whatever. Whatever he likes to do, then he has to communicate it as well. And I think that lends itself to, an excellent relationship where, there's no insecurities of if my husband, if your husband is going, oh, it's a beautiful baby. If the husband is not there for a couple of hours, one should feel secure that my husband is doing what he's said he was going to do, and my wife is doing what she said she was going to do. Right? So absolutely, I agree that a man should also have his personal time, his personal space of self care, whatever he sees self care to be. And it could be like Aminah said, her husband likes to drive around in his big truck and blast noise as if it was back in the day. So that's what makes him happy, as long as the cops don't pull him over, for being a nuisance in the street. And some husbands likes to just go to the masjid and chill out, or he can go and get a massage. But that's not a lot of men are not into that kind of stuff. I've been inviting my husband to join me in massage. He's like, no, that's not a man thing for him. But he doesn't have a problem if I'm going. I'm like, okay, cool, see you later. So yeah, that's what I would say. We have to get to learn each other and what their needs are and communicate that.
Yeah, I just also wanted to add that, I think sometimes what happens maybe for men and women, on either side, is that people just don't respect that the other person is also doing a hard job.
Mm-hmm.
The other person is also having a hard day, So, as women, we may feel like if we're home with the kids all day, obviously I've had a rough day. You've just been at work chilling, and I've been at home, and it's hectic and almost like, how dare you want some time alone? They're having a hard day too. And for the women that work also, you go out to work, it's not easy. There's stress there, and especially if you're financially providing for a family, or the husband is the sole financial provider, or whomever. In some cases, maybe even the woman is the sole financial provider.
Mm-hmm.
But as Muslims, generally, it's going to be the husband's the sole financial provider, and maybe the husband and wife are sharing that responsibility. That's a lot. It's a lot to have the financial load of the family on your shoulders, And so for women, we've had it rough all day home with the kids. Sometimes your husband comes home and he wants a nap, and you're thinking how dare you? Just let him take a nap. Just let him take a nap. And husbands, sometimes, hey, they're out having a rough day at work, and you come home and your wife just wants to go out, or she wants to take a nap. You've had a rough day, but if you can spare it, let her take a nap. Just remember that both of us, as adults, nobody has an easy life. As responsible adults, we've all got it rough, so just be considerate of the other person and recognize if people are working hard, if you're not a slacker, inshallah, you're not married to a slacker, everybody's got their own stresses, and we should respect that,
Yeah.
Don't think you're the only one that has it rough.
Right. And don't devalue each other, right? I believe once you value each other, you understand and you communicate very well that, hey, I understand you need some time, and we're going to be considerate of each other. I think the communication at the end of the day is so key in everything that we do, right? No, I think I saw a question popped up, or was that a statement?
Okay, so we have two questions from, I think there are two, from Abdul Hakim. So again, inshallah ta'ala, we plan to end at the 2-hour mark. So if you have any questions, please send them in now so we can answer them. So Abdullah, he asks two questions. So I'll ask both, and then you guys can chime in. What are some qualities a woman should possess or acquire if she wants to undertake the role of housewife. Then he said, what is expected of a man whose wife elects to undertake the housewife role? I'll let anyone chime in. Whoever
Um,
talks first.
Okay, well, I'll just say quickly, I guess I'll answer the questions backwards. So, what's expected of a man whose wife elects to undertake the housewife role? I think what is expected of him is that he is the sole financial provider, number one. It's also expected that he understands the sort of difficulty it is, the difficulty sort of intrinsic in a woman who's an adult having to depend on someone else financially. It is difficult, you know. And so, in his consideration of that as part of making her job easier, then to consider, like, you know, a, an allowance or a budget, you know, involve her in the finances somewhat, in the sense of at least give her a budget, and understand that she will need time alone. I think, and also understand that she needs some time away from the home, and also understands that she might still need help around the house, right? Because especially once children come into the picture, it's not easy, you know, like as a stay-at-home mom, you could literally be cooking and cleaning all day long. And at the end of the day, it may not even look like you did anything.
So true.
It's, by the time the children run in the kitchen and somehow they're always hungry, even though you just fed them, and all of those things, you know. And and because it is an underappreciated role, he should know that she will need, or at least appreciate, like, um, expressed gratitude or expressed appreciation, or, you know, like to be seen, like, you know, as people say, like, she'll want to feel appreciated, and so that he makes it known, you know, that she's appreciated. The qualities that a woman might want to develop or inculcate in herself: patience, you know, right? So if she was going to take the role of a housewife, patience, gratitude, sort of attention to detail, um, becoming organized. Like, I'm not an organized person, like, by nature, in that it does not come naturally to me to organize things. But if you're going to run a household, you know, be the main person running a household, you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to, like, fake it till you make it. Do the things that organized people do. Even if you don't feel like you're an organized person yourself, you know? And really, like, I think really, take pride in creating a happy household, right? Take pride in creating, like, a happy and peaceful space, you know? Take pride in beautifying yourself, pride in beautifying your surroundings, just pride in creating a happy home, you know? That's what I would say, right? Like, there are always things to do. Like I said, you get bored sometimes as a housewife, just when you forget, like, how important your job is, right? And that you're really building family, you're building community, and also have a community of friends, you know, with a similar mindset. Have a community of friends who are also homemakers, so that you can learn from each other, share with one another. Yeah, that's all I can think of right now.
Okay, Hanifah. So I guess to wrap up, I want to ask each of you, what would you say to someone, as you have all been married for quite some time, as to the particular difficulties of this role that you've chosen? Obviously, you're all many things, but we're focusing on the working versus not working. So I'll go to you first, Amina, Dr. Knight. If someone wanted to be a working wife, whether they were coming from being a housewife or just getting married and thinking, yeah, I want to be a working wife, I want to have my own money, etc., what are some things you would tell that person to look out for? Sort of beyond the, I guess, beyond just the benefits and the negatives, like how do you prepare for what you're going to face in that role?
Yeah, I think that for me, I would definitely give advice to a woman to say, make sure that you're paying close attention to um, your husband's needs in terms of, like, are you still making him feel like you're being submissive? Because when you're making money, you can start, your ego can start to get the best of you sometimes, and you can start to feel like, mm, dare I say masculine? I don't want to say masculine, but I want to say it. Like, you can sometimes start to feel like, I'm doing this. Like, I got this. Like, now let me take you out. You can kind of start to feel like that, and which is nice to have money and to be able to do financial things too. But if your husband really might actually prefer you to stay home, but you prefer to work, and he's allowing you to work, I feel like you want to still always make sure that he knows that you are very much aware that he's allowing you to work. And so to kind of make sure that you're stroking his ego in a sense in that way, and still making sure that, like, yeah, even though I'm making money too, no, 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 I still know that you are the man, you are the one. And so, yeah, it has to be, you have to make sure that you keep it worth his while for you to be working, and not to make him feel like, you're just taking so much time away from home, or now you think you can stay out as late as you want just because you're making money. No, you have to kind of check your ego in that sense, and just make sure that you're still m- making him feel like the amazing man and leader that he is, even with you working.
You touched on a lot, a lot of things there that could kind of be their own conversations. On a lot,
Yeah.
masculinity, stroking egos. It's a lot there. It's kind of a
Yeah,
lot.
I just want to say quickly though, because I know something in our modern community, on modern day lifestyle, that word submission, people all of a sudden get very antsy about it. It's like, what, I have to submit? No, if you're very tactful as a woman, you understand how to submit to your husband, right? It is not something where your husband is beating you over the head. And if you're a man, you know how to be very tactful and working with your wife, you guys to work things out without her feeling as though, like, what, all of a sudden you're the master and I'm the, what am I, the slave or something. That word is used so incorrectly in our society these days that it makes women, again, brings out that masculine side of a woman, which is not very attractive. And I've seen it a lot in my community where women are just so, like, they're showing up in this masculine space and like, what the heck is this? Like, I mean, you can be feminine all you want, but you don't have to act like a man, right? There's a role for a man and there's a role for a woman. So when you're bringing, and you can feel that energy from some women, they take such offense as soon as you say the word, yeah, I'm submissive to my husband. Is there something wrong with that? And then they're like, then they have to pause and think about it. No, because my husband is a man, right? And I respect him in his role as a leader. Now, if you have a problem with that, you're going to have to deal with that, but we don't have a problem with it. So I think sometimes we just have to be very, very aware that some of those influences can certainly seep into our culture as Muslims, that um, we see, some of us see ourselves showing up that way, and not because you are working mean or you're making more money than your husband that all of a sudden you feel as though you are taking on a masculine role. It's a compliment. It's like a partnership, right? You should be willing to help your husband when there's a need to help your husband. Do it with great pride, and he values what you, as a lot of people say these days, bringing to the table. You know, even that terminology I don't like, but I'm just saying, as long as you value each other and understand your roles and complement each other in those roles, I don't think you should have a problem. But at the end of the day, and I'm sure I must have said this a zillion times, it really is about communication, right? It's not about an assumption. It's not about devaluing someone. It's about working in partnership. And I think in those cases, you will find yourself having a healthy marriage and always be open to have a conversation. Our men, unfortunately, some of them are culturalized to, as soon as a wife says, sweetheart, we need to talk about X, Y, and Z, it's like all of a sudden this wall goes up. It's like, oh my God, are we about to get into a fight or something? No, we're about to have a conversation. So males have to learn how to communicate better, and females have to learn to say what it is they need to say in order to maintain that family and help to run that family. And I think if we do it in a very tactful way, things will be a whole lot better for us as a community.
Okay, Hamnida. Subhanallah, I'm surprised we've gotten to, I think this is part 5 or 6, and not ever talked about submission. So thank you, Mina, for adding that. It's like a hot button topic on the internet. So, Kita, what would you say you would tell someone before they go into this role of being a housewife, being a stay-at-home mom, that they should be aware of or prepare for? You're muted.
Yeah, I think, well, I like what everyone was saying. I think maybe one thing to be aware of and prepare for is that in our subconscious, just because we are modern people, we are American or whatever the case may be, Western people, Western influence, we have a subconscious feeling that not working makes you inferior,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And even when you choose to be a stay-at-home wife, it can be sort of running in the back of your head that you're not contributing as much to the family, that your role is inferior, that you almost sort of demote yourself, right? Because you're not making money. And that can, like, it's just your own, sort of negative societal like self-talk. But if you don't check yourself, that will translate into how you communicate or don't communicate with your husband, right? So like mommy said, quite a few times, communication is key. Well, if you feel that you're not as valuable in the relationship, then you won't communicate effectively. It'll be difficult for you to say how you feel. It'll be difficult for you to voice your concerns or even quote unquote know your place, because there's this kind of background noise of, well, am I even allowed to say anything because I'm not bringing money in, and that really is just cheating yourself and cheating your spouse, right? Because you're an adult, your spouse married an adult, you value staying at home. Inshallah, he values staying at home. And so don't demote yourself and don't demote your self-worth. Like, just watch out for that, because I think it is something that creeps in. And then sometimes for stay-at-home moms, sometimes instead of dealing with it by like confronting it and having a conversation and realizing what you're doing to your own self, then women may look for work, but not because they want to work, but just because they want to feel valuable, you know? And so I would just say that for women who choose to stay at home, remember that, a woman's jihad is in her home, right? And that's whether she's working, making money or not, right? Remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has valued you as a woman, and he's the one that said you don't have to financially provide for your household. So not financially providing does not make you less of a woman. And so remember that the value that you provide as a woman in the family is intrinsic, and it's linked with your value as a worshiper, right? Your value um, as a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know? And so own that, and yet don't fall into the subconscious trap of thinking that A, you're not as valuable in the marriage because you're not making money, or B, like I'm just home not doing anything, and like there's nothing to do at home. There's a lot to do at home. So like we don't want to be that stereotype of the woman who's just at home scrolling, and you haven't cleaned or cooked or taken care of the kids because you've just been like sitting on the couch all day. Like also don't fall into that, right? um, Remember that what you do working in your household, creating a peaceful home, creating a beautiful environment, making sure that you are, you know, an attentive companion to your husband and an attentive mother to your children, a community builder within your own right in your home. Just remember that that is valuable, and remember to interact with your husband and communicate with him as the adult, valuable person that you are. Not bringing in money does not demote your status.
Correct. Yes, Sister Hanifah, please help us wrap this up and give us your feedback.
Alhamdulillah. I really love what you said, Makeda, about stay-at-home mothers not feeling like they're less valuable because we don't financially contribute, or we're not providing most of the financial contribution, because there are stay-at-home moms that do, as you have business, or they work from the home. um so yeah, we definitely internalize a lot of what our society tells us about
Mhm.
what our value is as a person, especially being that we're in a capitalist society. Um, we're told that our worth is what we bring in financially. And I think another thing that any women that are mothers that um, are that want to be stay-at-home moms, or that would like to do it in the future, I think something that they should know before going into it is just being open to the reality of it. You might you might do it and realize that you don't want to do it, and I think that's perfectly fine. Not it's not for everyone. It really isn't. Or you might do it and be like myself, where you say, oh, I just want to do it for a certain period of time,
Mhm.
and I, it's not, it may not necessarily be something that you want to do forever. Or you might get into it and say, this is something that I want to do forever.
Mhm.
So those are all perfectly good things that, perfectly acceptable things
Mhm.
for any woman to do. The I think the reality is that um there are pros and cons to everything. We're living on Earth. We're not we're not in Jannah yet, right? So there's going to be pros and cons to every role that we choose in life,
Mhm.
and understanding, what that might mean for you in your situation and your family. Um, and also just being open to adjusting your expectations, adjusting how you might have done things as a stay-at-home mom or as a homemaker in the beginning of your journey might not be something that you did, down the line when you have 4 or 5 kids. It might have worked when you had only 1 or 2 kids, but now down the line it's not working anymore. And it's okay to pivot and
Mhm.
do something different. But yeah, I think just like asking women that are homemakers or stay-at-home moms, like, what is your day-to-day like? What makes you want to continue doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
Asking working moms, like, what is your day to day like? Why are you still working? Like, how are you able to balance everything in your life? For both stay home moms and working moms, I think
Mhm.
just being a mom in general, I think whether you work or whether you stay at home, I think the thing that everyone's wanting or desiring is balance
Mhm.
between you know, the self and then everyone else's needs and the roles that we're occupying. So yeah, just and there's a lot of online support if you feel like you don't have a lot of in-person support. I
Mhm.
know some of us live in isolated communities, or some of us don't live near family, or maybe you're still kind of finding your community and developing friendships. I know as an adult, making friends can be kind of weird sometimes, but um yeah, like there's a lot, like on Facebook, I'm a part of multiple stay-at-home mom groups. And especially like as a black stay-at-home mom, there's a lot of groups that are specifically geared towards us and, what we go through in our community. So, um yeah, just like, kind of researching and seeing what, the reality is. Um and understanding like there are pros to it, there are cons to it, it's not always easy, but it's not always hard. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. So we have to let Makeda go because she is in Qatar. And Makeda, thank you so much as usual to participate in this extremely important conversation we believe it to be. And thank you for sharing the audience with your thoughts. Thank you so much, Kida. Assalamu alaikum.
Hi, Kita.
Alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, Nuri. So I think we're at our end. This is one of our shorter, believe it or not, shorter versions. Sometimes we go until 2:30, but I think because we want to be able to have the audience participate as well. So Nuri, what is our next series? Before we do that, I do want to thank Sister Hanifah. You've really contributed to this conversation. Dr. Aminah, you as well. And I pray Allah that you all continue to be blessed with raising your families, and the roles that you play are so important. So thank you again.
Alhamdulillah. Yes, thank you to you both. So the next part of this series, again, it's every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are going to be talking about successful marriages, how to have a successful marriage. So inshallah ta'ala, please tune in. Please tune in for that. And Amina, do you want to give your daycare handle? Maybe there's some people in the area that might be interested on Instagram, or how they can contact you best.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Nuri. So my daycare is called Excellence Early Learning Center, and the website is excellenceearlylearningcenter.com. We're located in Hurst, Texas. We are actually in the process of expanding, so that is very exciting. Um, yeah, check us out. Check us out online, and you can learn more about us. And the telephone number is linked on the website.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, mashallah. Thank you both for joining us. Sister Hanifa, I think you're a private person. I don't know if you have anything you want people to follow you on.
You can follow me on or add me on Facebook or on Instagram at that stay at home Zoj.
Okay, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Uh,
So, mashallah, it seems like you're open to people connecting with you about being a homemaker. Am I correct in that? Okay, alhamdulillah. So if you are a homemaker, then reach out to Hanifa, follow her. I'm sure she can tell you, mention again some of those groups on Facebook so that you get at least some support online. So inshallah ta'ala, yes, our next part of the series is again on successful marriages. Thank you to those of you who have tuned in for all of our series, and those of you who have tuned in today. Really quickly, we ask that you support Masjid Muhammad. So please consider sending some money to their Cash App. That is $ Masjid Muhammad AC, all lowercase. Again, $Masjid Muhammad AC. Please consider donating. Alhamdulillah, without their platform, we would not have this series. So do donate to their efforts. Any final thoughts, Mom or Shiri? wrap up.
Well, we are good. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and join us next week. Inshallah, have a wonderful week.
Inshallah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.